Hello, I'm Gustavo and this is Stories of Cinema. Guillermo del Toro is one of the most famous directors today, winning the appraisal of critics and people alike. The Mexican director is very well known for his monster and fantasy films, as well as his kind and humble character, which makes everyone fall in love with him. From Guadalajara to Hollywood, he is the protagonist in my very first director filmography video.
I'm Mexican. And you know...
And remember, it may contain spoilers.
Regalito y gracias para todos. Todos. Buena suerte.
Del Toro started his filmic career in 1993 with Cronos, a vampire horror Mexican film starring Federico Luppi and Ron Perlman, and written by himself. His first project was actually very strong, because the film showed a story that was interesting and different at the same time, focusing on a strange object we learn more about on each scene. The film depicts the encounter between the artifact and an antique dealer, Jesus Gris, who gets attached to it. All of that while his little granddaughter worries about him. On the other hand, a businessman continues his search of the device because he has the power to make anyone immortal. The movie gets us involved in the pursuit for the little scarab artifact, along with twists and very well done special effects that get us invested in a very unique vampire scenario, almost making it its very own subgenre. Again, the movie is quite good and enjoyable, and it started two of Del Toro's closest work relations, with Luppi and Perlman. Definitely one of the best first independent films from a director, and one that I truly appreciate.
Most insects don't kill unless their territory is invaded.
4 years later, in 1997, comes Mimic, the least favorite film of any fan of Guillermo, or the least favorite of anyone.
You know, I've been doing this for 25 years, and with the exception of 1997 Mimic, which was a very difficult production that was compromised, other than that, the movies I've made are movies that I feel I need to make.
He co-wrote this one with the help of Matthew Robbins, and well, I'll be quick. Cockroaches are all over Manhattan spreading some kind of disease, and with the help of Mira Sorvino's and Jeremy Northam's characters, they must try to eradicate the cockroaches before the same thing happens to them. Let's just skip this one, okay?
El pueblo, a esto le llaman el espinazo del diablo.
Starting the new century, Del Toro started working for the first time with Warner Brothers and Sony Pictures, and in 2001 delivered one of his best films, The Devil's Backbone. El Espinazo del Diablo is a co-production between Mexico and Spain, and it is set during the end of the Spanish Civil War. It was written by Del Toro, David Muñoz, and Antonio Tachojas, and starring Marisa Paredes as Carmen and Federico Luppi as Dr. Casares, who both run a small orphan home in a very distant place, with the help of Eduardo Noriega as Jacinto and Irene Vicedo as Conchita, a couple that has been planning for a while to flee and marry. The real protagonists though are the kids, especially Fernando Tielve as Carlos and Íñigo Garcés as Jaime, who struggle to get along but we start to connect in a way due to the mystery of a ghost, who then we see that is a boy named Santi, who the other orphans thought escaped after a non-exploding bomb hit their front yard. This is a really good horror movie because it has not the common jumpscares, but it actually focuses on creating tension and making us feel curious as if we were little kids, who also happen to be very adventurous and will do anything to maintain their pride. It excels in storytelling and talks about many different important topics such as science, faith, family, and trust, and it can only get better after watching it again. The events happening towards the end change drastically the genre and make the film even better and more interesting, and it surprises you in some ways. They should definitely be on your watchlist from this director. Starting out with blockbusters, Guillermo del Toro directed the second installment of Blade, written by David S. Goyer, becoming one of the stars of the new generation of superhero/comic book movies coming to the 21st century. Wesley Snipes and Chris Christopherson come back again to the franchise, as the half-vampire Blade and the Whistler, and Del Toro brings with him his friend Ron Perlman as Dieter Reinhardt, a vampire who terribly despises Blade. This movie is a mere continuation of the first one, but with almost no connection to it. It focuses more on the action and the monsters, and because Del Toro was involved, the creatures gain an importance in the story. A very solid sequel and remains one of my favorite comic books films to date, even when I was reluctant to watch it at first. If Del Toro hadn't directed this movie, I may have not decided to watch them both and may have missed the chance of enjoying the great action scenes that closely resemble the ones found in Matrix. Something I love in the movies from the 90s and the 2000s is how they look like, their cinematography, because they all focus in one specific color, in this case red, which resembles blood, and the contrasts found in it are just beautiful. There's a better example that you will see in the next movie I'll talk about. Finally, there's one scene in particular that I love in this installment, which happens at the very beginning, when Blade is fighting some guys in motorcycles and then he does a bullfighter move, a reference to Del Toro's work in Spain. Definitely a great action movie.
What you looking at, John?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
Code red.
Hey.
Warning. Code red.
They're playing our song. Come on, champ. Let's go fight some monsters.
On 2004, Del Toro wrote and directed my favorite comic book movie that's not Marvel or DC, a film that I consider is visually rich, as well as rich in its story and content. Ron Perlman comes for the third time to work with Del Toro, starring as Anon Unrama, Hellboy, a demon adopted by humans and who now works fighting other monsters. Selma Blair as Lee Sherman and Doug Jones as Abe Sapien are also very important in the film and represent an added value to it. Doug Jones previously worked in Mimic, but got protagonism in this film and further films in Del Toro's filmography. Action, mystery, horror, monsters, this movie is fantastic and it is as fun as you would want it to be. At the beginning there's a scene I enjoy because it is very visually pleasing, where Nazi members are trying to open a portal to bring a monster to Earth to help defeat the Allies during World War II, and the whole scene, how the grey contrasts with everything, and how incredible it looks made me fall in love with that scene. Hellboy is both a good film and a fun one, and one that many people love.
Soy un fauno, vuestro más humilde súbdito, Alteza.
No.
Pan's Labyrinth came in 2006, Del Toro's monster fairy tale. This one is a very fantastic dark story written by himself, starring Ivana Vaquero as Ophelia and Doug Jones as the Faun and the Pale Man, the last one being one of my favorite monsters in his filmography. El Laberinto del Fauno is a Spanish-Mexican co-production that takes place after the Spanish Civil War, and centers around a mysterious labyrinth and a little girl who turns out to be a princess conceived by light. This film uses makeup and animatronics whenever possible, and CGI just when it's necessary, delivering creatures that feel real and plausible. This is pure fantasy and it works pretty well, a must watch from Del Toro.
Like a shadow. Like a shadow in the night.
We're again in the Hellboy franchise, now with its sequel, The Golden Army, released in 2008. What's left to say about this? It is again written by him and starring the same people, being a direct continuation of the first one, as fun and as good as the previous one. Basically there's an adventure and Hellboy keeps fighting monsters and he has to beat Nuada and the Golden Army. Pure fun and very enjoyable. Time for more. Five years later, in 2013, came his Hayuk blockbuster that he wrote with Travis Beacham, Pacific Rim. This is what we all need from time to time. A very fun and enjoyable film of giant robots versus giant monsters, though maybe making the first hour a little more interesting so we don't get bored with generic human talk. Anyways, all the battles are phenomenal and I can seem to recall a movie that used giant figures fighting among themselves in such a good way like this one does. Charlie Hunnam as Riley Beckett, Idris Elba as Marshall Pentecost, and Rinko Kikuchi as Mako Mori are okay in their characters. Perhaps Rinko is the best one, but Idris and Charlie could have been better, and Idris as the protagonist would have been the better option. So the human factor is kind of weak in this film, but I love the battles so much I need more of them. In 2015, Crimson Peak was released, a very underrated film in my opinion. It is not his best film, but it definitely stands out both visually and story-wise. Written again by Del Toro and Robbins, this film is a weird horror romance film, starring Wasikowska as Edith, Tom Hiddleston as Thomas, and Jessica Chastain as Lucille, centering around the aftermath of a family tragedy involving deaths and ghosts, with a visual aesthetic different from any other film. Again, not the best one, but still holds up. Finally, in 2017, the movie he wrote with Vanessa Taylor, the film that gave him the Best Director and Best Picture awards, The Shape of Water.
And the Oscar goes to Guillermo del Toro.
It is a very beautiful fantasy love story between a mute woman and an amphibian man. Sally Hawkins is Eliza, a mute cleaner working in a secret government facility. The great Octavia Spencer is Zelda Fuller, Eliza's co-worker and interpreter. The incredible Michael Shannon is Richard Strickland, a colonel studying the amphibian. And of course, Doug Jones is the amphibian man. The visuals, the acting, the script, the direction, everything is to be praised in this film. It is so beautiful and it represents each love story found in cinema. A man and a woman fall in love. They do not care how they look or how different they are. They just love the person they are with and help each other find their inner peace. She helps the man escape from being exploited, and he helps her find her place and someone to love. Forget about the common romance cheesy comedy movies. This is a true love story that happens to include a monster. This film is fantastic and I deeply cherish it. The Shape of Water is what many people aspire to do, but only what experience can produce. Now we have reviewed each of the 10 films Guillermo del Toro has directed by 2020, and we can just expect the ones coming after, like Pinocchio and Nightmare Alley. He is not a common director, he is a creator. He loves fantasy, monsters. He's not trying to make a classic or a masterpiece. He doesn't want to be the greatest director of all time. He just wants to tell his stories and pay homage to the monsters that were once part of his life, but that now are his life. Guillermo del Toro is a great director and a far better person, and I admire him as a creator, as a writer, as a director, and I will always try to be at least half the great person he is. You can follow me on Twitter at Stories of Cinema, on Instagram at Stories of Cinema 1, and on Letterboxd at Gustavo Ramos01. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it or you have any suggestions, please leave it in the comments down below, or tell me in any of my social media. And as always, thank you for watching.